We need to operationalize ideas. We have a lot of ideas to solve problems of the world.
How can we build and scale the new business models, products and services, marketplaces, partnerships, and alliances that will strengthen our resilience in the areas of food security, public health and wellness, education, and social cohesion and culture?
We need to operationalize ideas. We have a lot of ideas to solve problems of the world.
How can we build and scale the new business models, products and services, marketplaces, partnerships, and alliances that will strengthen our resilience in the areas of food security, public health and wellness, education, and social cohesion and culture?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of MDM Live, where we feature discourses on sustainability as the new normal for businesses and societies. Please do share our Facebook Live, and hope you guys have your cups of coffee with you. And I assure you, it's going to be an exciting and insightful conversation this afternoon. Okay, so but before we proceed, we send out some greetings to some of our viewers. We have Harold Blue, Rapladon, and our friends from Bhutan. And moving forward, you can join our discussion by sending in your comments and questions on our Facebook comments section. Also, shout out to the MDM 2020 cohort. Okay. Okay, so again, please do share our live feed. And okay, let's get started with our program this afternoon. Okay, we do have guests all the way from Nepal and Pakistan. So we'll just say hi to you first. Maham, hello. Thank you for joining. How are you doing, Maham?
Hi, Carlo. Hi, everybody. I'm doing good. It's a great day today. So I'm excited to be here.
It is. What time is it there in Pakistan?
It's around 1:20 or 3 hours behind.
All right. Nice to see you. We'll get back to you later. And Anuja, how are you doing? How's it there in Nepal?
Hi, Carlo. I'm good. Hi, Maham. All's good in Nepal. So time-wise, it's 2 p.m. here. It's good. I would say, yeah.
All right. Nice to know that you guys are doing good. And later, Prof. Arnil will be joining us as well. And this afternoon, we are going to talk about impact leadership. You know, with this pandemic, a lot of us, even our businesses, have been greatly impacted. And I think one of the responses that we can do is having an impact leadership. So maybe you can start with that. Maybe Maham and Anuja, you can share your own definitions of impact leadership. Why don't we start with Maham first?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, impact leadership is about leading complex teams, working with different sort of stakeholders, and creating that social impact with scale, while still keeping communities in the center. How do we then benefit our communities? How do we work with them closely? And it's really focusing on that social impact eventually, and keeping it at the core of whatever you do.
Right. Thank you for that. Anuja, any other thoughts about the impact leadership?
Basically, it's the same as Maham, but in my language, I would say it's when you are working or you are working on a mission with some drive that comes from within you, and it's not just you, but you work with your people, like people who have similar missions, and you work with an attempt of bringing in change, not just in your life or in like people in your surrounding, but also in your society or at large in your country. Then that for me would be impact leadership, an example of it.
All right. Thank you for that. Very well said. You know, with what you two said, the one thing that they picked up is that it's not really about us. It's about the people that we serve. No? And I'm very excited. So we'll get more about that. And we're going to talk about also how MDM, the MDM program, will be helping us and getting to know more and having the actual learning and discussions on impact leadership. Now, let's go deeper and let's have more discussions on how MDM, the Masters in Development Management, has impacted your lives. Maybe we'll start with Anuja this time first. What made you sign up for the Masters in Development program?
Yeah, things came together after many years for me. I was working with the Canadian Red Cross in Nepal earlier before I joined MDM. And that too was not of a planned thing. It happened with me. It was I always say it was an accident, but it was a beautiful accident that happened in my life. And I just enjoyed that work of what I was really doing. And as a result, I ended up working there for 5 years. And at one point, I felt like I really enjoy what I'm doing. I am really glad of what I'm able to do and with the people that I met and was able to work with. But at one point I was like, but still I need to learn how this is done best or in better ways, because I never learned it, right? I just did it through enthusiasm, by learning from people around, but never really had, that depth of knowledge. And I started looking around, and actually I talked with one of my friends who was then doing MDM at AIM, and I expressed to him that this is what I was doing, and I'm looking for a course. Then he jumped in and said, Anuja, we have a course called PPDM, which stands for the project and program design and management, right? And he was like, that's for you. It's the Bible of MDM. So that's when I actually started looking into MDM, and I got really excited. And yeah, this was mid 2019, and then in early 2020, I was already a part of MDM.
All right, thank you for sharing that, Anuja. And before we go to Maham, let me give a short introduction about our guest, the next guest, Maham. So Maham Tanvir is based in Islamabad, Pakistan, who has an MBA in marketing and almost 8 years of work experience, primarily in development sector in Pakistan. Okay, so her most recent role was being the head of recruitment and selection at Teach for Pakistan. Before that, she was working as head of youth development program at the WWF in Pakistan. And also an additional hashtag fun fact, Maham is also very much accustomed to the Filipino culture with her experience here in the country. Is that one of the reasons why it was easy for you to sign up for MDM?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very big plus point for choosing MDM, because I was like, I need to be in the Philippines. I need to be very immersed in the culture, the food, the people. So it was a win-win situation. But it's
you
a
can
question.
discuss in Filipino, Maham?
I mean, alam ko Tagalog, pero konti-konti lang.
All right.
So I think for me, joining MDM, much similar to what Anuja was saying, was 8 years of working in development sector in Pakistan. I gained a lot of experience working on ground. The reason why I joined development sector was I noticed there was a lot of inequity and social injustice, and I wanted to be part of organizations that were trying to solve for it. And in that course of action, I met incredible people, worked with some great organizations. However, I had a lot of questions that I felt like I didn't have answers to. Questions like, why does inequity exist in the first place? How do you manage growing team of people where profit is not on the table, or it's not the incentive? How do you then motivate those people? And questions like, how do you then create impact where you keep communities at the center and the communities that you serve? How do you work closely with them? So I joined MDM because I wanted answers to those questions, and I've been getting them in the last 8 years. One thing that I wanted to do was take a year to focus on my personal and professional growth, meet like-minded people, particularly development leaders in Asia, get some theoretical knowledge, but also learn from their experience as well of how they've been managing in their roles. And so far, it's been a wonderful experience in the classroom and with our classmates and the professors as well.
All right, thank you. But in retrospect, I wanted to ask you to Maham and Anuja. In retrospect, with your previous organizations, how did your desire to leave an impact in your community motivate you in probably the previous organizations that you were connected with? Maybe you can share about your personal advocacy. So why don't we start with Maham?
Okay, so answering the first bit of your question about what part of my organization made me think that MDM was the right choice. One was because the organization that I was part of was scaling and it was growing rapidly. And as it was growing, I realized I was getting so wrapped up in day-to-day activities of managing work that I needed to sort of have a zoomed out perspective of what is it that we actually need to do as managers. how do you manage that complex scenario where you're keeping the communities and the people and other different stakeholders, government and whatnot. So that was one reason why I joined MDM. In terms of my personal advocacy, I think it's a known fact in the classmates because they keep talking about it, is a gender issue. I'm a strong advocate for women empowerment, particularly because unfortunately at this day and age, we're still at a point in time in development countries, especially where women still don't have rights, where we're talking about issues like gender pay gaps. And that's something that doesn't feel right. We still need to give access to women in terms of health and education and whatnot. So a lot of work still needs to be done. So that's a personal advocacy that I sort of carry in my heart while I'm still learning in MDM program.
All right. And before you share your story, Anuja, let me give some, you gave an introduction about what you did before, but let me just add. So to our viewers, Anuja is currently undertaking her master's degree in development management, and she's a former employee of the Canadian Red Cross Society under the International Federation of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent Societies in Nepal. And like Maham, I did a little research, and here's a hashtag, a fun fact about Anuja. Anuja claims that she owns the moon, or you just have a great fascination about it. We'll get to that later, but maybe you can discuss about your personal advocacy.
Thanks, Carlo. Let me just protect myself from any kind of attacks on claiming the moon. But yes, that's a fantasy I have. I just feel like it's mine. Yeah, moving on. Working with a previous organization, like I said, it was not a planned thing, but something I discovered is after being enrolled there, I actually started as a volunteer. So in my volunteering days, I actually identified that was my, that was where the inner satisfaction of doing things came from, and not necessarily what I was otherwise looking for. So that was a huge discovery. And so I just took that path and went ahead. In terms of my advocacy, I very much respect Maham's advocacy there, and I totally support on that. Gender equality is, of course, what you and I and everybody advocate for. On top of that, I would say, for me, because of some personal experiences or the environment that I grew up in or I have been a part of, health and education has always been a concern. And my advocacy is to make sure that health and education both would be available first, then accessible and affordable to everyone. I would say regardless of the gender, the ethnicity, the caste, as well as the economic or financial situation. And this is large, I know, but my aim is to start with a small segment first. So yeah, that's how I guess we'll later discuss about our MRR, and that's where my MRR comes from.
Yeah, all right. So for our viewers, MRR is the Management Research Report. It's a management strategy paper that the students of MDM are required to accomplish. And again, it's aligned to the impact leadership that we are talking about, because it aims to provide solutions to the problems that we have in our societies. Now, Maham and Anuja, I'd like to repeat or just echo what you mentioned and reinforce that you're talking about gender issues and multi-sectoral issues or concerns. Anuja mentioned about health, education, equality and equity. So I think this is important in terms of impact leadership, because you experience that in Pakistan, you advocate for it in Nepal, and for sure, we also experience these kinds of scenarios, and we have these circumstances here. So I think stronger together would be a good way of putting it. No, now going back to the MDM, Anuja, you mentioned earlier that there's one subject that really got your interest in signing up for MDM. Now, while taking this course, what are the other, I would say, learning or the way we learn at MDM, not just from the books, not just from the lectures? How does it become personal to you now, the learnings that we get from MDM? Maham?
So in terms of the courses that we were talking about, I think one of the great things about MDM is that we have this great mix of courses from systems thinking to basic economics and public policy. So you're learning all sorts of things that you might have not learned in your previous undergraduate degrees, or things that you might have found across, like things like, for example, budgeting and finance, something that I ended up doing in my last job, but realized I didn't really know how to do it. So we took up some of the courses, so we got some basic idea of how to have those certain elements of skills while we're managing a development sector organization. So there's a great confluence of different sources of courses and different learnings that you get in the classroom, which holistically gives you a better perspective of how to lead an organization once you go back after MDM.
All right. Anuja?
I couldn't agree more on what Maham just said. To add to it, I was pleasantly surprised by, of course, courses like project and program development and management, and something like bridging leadership, where we again went back to learning about the importance of values when we do things, the importance of doing things together to co-create. I really value these kind of teachings and learnings we get from MDM, because I was not expecting that we would be taught about this at this age or at this stage of our life. But I have always personally really valued those discussions and those those ideas, because that really matters at the end of the day. On top of that, I actually was really surprised when I entered the classroom and I saw a diverse group of students in the class. Like, who do we not have in our class, right? We have doctors, we have people from the military, we have police, and of course, people working in the NGO sectors. We have lawyers and who not, like IT, people from the IT background, accountants, principals from schools all around, and as well as like people from the agricultural background. And most fascinating for me was people from the fashion industry or from art background, right? So I cannot explain enough like the kind of diversity that we have in class and the richness it brings, because although we all come from such a varied background, there is something common in us, and that's, I think, is our common interest of doing something for the society, and again at country at large. And you know how beautiful it looks when we see everybody doing their part from their own sector, out of their own enthusiasm and interest to serve and to bring that impact in the society. So this is something I really value. And of course, we have Maham and I both represent the international students for the course there, and we have other countries representatives there as well. So I like the cross-cultural learning and our experiences that we share. It's more of a sharing of experiences, right, in the classroom, where we use a lot of case methods as well. And there is lectures as well. So all of this together, I really enjoyed. And this is my first time because thus far in my experience in Nepal, we haven't had that kind of teaching methods. And for me, I'm really enjoying it, and I value it actually.
Thank you, Anuja. And really, I like what you mentioned about the diversity in the class of NDM, because truly, when you get more and new perspectives, it helps you have a broader view of things on how you approach a solution or how you frame a problem, and to be able to come up with different solutions from different perspectives. I think that's another angle of impact leadership that is very important. And I'd like to add to what you mentioned earlier, Anuja and Maham, economics. Before COVID, we were talking about economics, the impact of remittances, the impact of the businesses, education, and this happened. So I think we do have, it was a good, I would say, preparation for us, good learning, because we were able to not react, but to respond to these kinds of situations. And I think that's one of the strengths of MDM. No, we don't just get to learn theoretical classroom learning, but we actually do have supplementing activities that we do in our studies. Okay, now mentioning about MRR, Anuja, you mentioned that earlier. Maybe you can give us more details, if it's okay, on the solution that you are trying to give oh no, I'm sorry, to the problem that you want to provide solutions to on your management research report.
Sure, Carlo. I just wanted to add to what you just said earlier. The interdisciplinary, we have a unique recipe inside MDM course. That's what I feel. It's very unique to me at least. And in my first 2 months in the case room, every time there was a discussion on economics or if it was about anything else, organizational behavior, finances, I always reflected back. Like I would go on a flashback and think, why did I not think of this earlier? Like why was I so much constrained? Why was my perspective of looking at things so small scale, or why was the scope not large enough? I think when we start working in like on a mission for a long time, we somehow sometimes lose that perspective of stepping back and being able to look at the larger picture. And that's why what I exactly felt in my first 2 months of the course. Then I was like, oh yes, I should have had thought in a bigger, at a larger scale, because that's only how we can actually bring in change, not by looking at it in a smaller scale of my small community of like say 10, 20 people, and then I bring about change. I should also keep in mind that that must be scalable. And this is a big learning that I had within the first 2 months. Talking about my MRR, this has actually a root in my personal experience where, health services have not always been accessible or available. And I have personal experiences of losing my family members out of treatments that could not be diagnosed or treatments that were not available. And later on of services that could have been made easily available, but somehow it's not. I don't know why, like what's lacking, because the world now has become smaller because of the technology that we have, right? So we have so much information accessible right now. There's so much we can learn and easily adapt, but then still we are lagged behind in so many things. So that's how my deeper interest of improving the health system arose. And fortunately, that's what I was working on when I was working with my previous organization. So thereon, I started feeling that attachment with improvement, with the importance of improving the pre-hospital care component. And this is by pre-hospital care, I mean, I refer to all the medical care that's available or made available to a patient before he or she arrives at the hospital or at a health facility where there are actually trained professional people who can treat the person, right? So there is a lot that can be done at the accident site or wherever the patient is in any form, how we can improve the life of the status of that person to ensure that the life is saved and that the cases of morbidity or the chances of morbidity is reduced at larger scale. So on that, of course, in Nepal, the situation currently is by pre-hospital, we are limited to the concept of ambulance services. But I want to elaborate that and not just include ambulance, but other components of pre-hospital care. And that's going to be my research work as a part of my MDM academic course. And this is something that we have actually already been doing since last year. So I have lots of hope that there will be wonderful changes and great that we will be able to improve this system to some extent from our end. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we feel the passion in what you're sharing, Anuja, and hope for the best on your management research report. Maham, would you like to share about what you are working on?
Yeah, so for me, because I've been working for the last few years on with youth and working on youth issues, and what I would do is I would go to a lot of recruitment drives, go to university campuses and meet these incredible young Pakistanis who were interested in giving back to the society. One thing that I would hear is, I want to give back to my country. How do I do that? And there are a lot of platforms in terms of finding jobs, but I noticed one thing was these kids want to do something that creates impact. They should start early already. And one way to do that is, why don't we just completely engage them or immerse them in development challenges that Pakistan faces? So once they actually realize what these challenges are, they work closely with these communities, they can then start understanding what the challenges these communities face and look for solutions to them. But it has to start a bit early instead of looking at it towards the later part of their life. So I was thinking of a centralized volunteer-based system why aren't young people given an avenue to volunteer actually? And the impact that it could have. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have a central volunteer system by the government or any other private agency where young people could sign up, register, and then work with NGOs and other organizations to volunteer. And that's something that I'm trying to create through my MRR, see how we can work with the government and nonprofit organizations and these universities and bring them all together in one single platform, which gives young people access to volunteer. And this should happen 2 to 3 years before they're graduating so that they already have a better understanding of what the development sector looks like. So eventually, if they want to move into that direction, start their own startup, social enterprise, it'll give them a better heads up and they will be more informed.
All right, thank you, Maham. Now, going back to what Anuja mentioned earlier, it was just the first 2 months, but it was really packed with a lot of learning, a lot of insights, and you mentioned earlier from our classmates as well. Now, let's go on the lighter side of our discussion. I mentioned about the international student, being international students, but what I want to tell you is that I think we also learn a lot from you. It's not just us hosting you, the Filipinos hosting the international participants, but how will you describe your life as international students? Anuja?
So I remember the first day I arrived in Philippines. This was the first time I ever visited Philippines, and like in a couple of hours, there was a volcanic eruption, right? And I was like, oh yes, Philippines has volcano. So it was possible, and I never really thought of it. So it was a very like a great explosive beginning of MDM for us. But then I immediately realized, like, I'm really glad and thankful that all my friends, including you, Carlo, all my Filipino friends are. I find them very friendly and helpful. And I must say this because I've felt this not in one occasion but multiple occasions, and like I have received help without even asking for it, and I'm really I'm grateful for that. Apart from that, as an international student, I think the location of AIM is really very practical. So it was easy for us to get to know the areas. Things were readily available there. The environment inside AIM is equally good. I was a dormer, so I was living in the dome. Actually, Maham used to be my dorm mate there. So that experience, it felt like a home to me because I was always within the compound, within the premises of AIM. And this is the thing. MDM, although it's a 1-year course, it's actually very intense, and it requires your every effort. It requires all your attention and energy and your enthusiasm, actually, I would say, to be a part of it in an active way, right? There are different ways you can be a part of a program, but if you really want to take the most out of it, you have to be present. You have to make yourself present. And that's what I learned. Like, I would always run out of time to do things because there's something or the other. We have a culture of working in learning teams, right? Like in different groups and individually. Then we have a lot of practical exercises, things we do, a lot of case exercises. So all of this actually would give me an opportunity to interact with my friends, with everybody, like the people, my friends from Bhutan, Vietnam, China, everyone, right? And of course, Filipinos. And one thing that we've always learned is food. Like, I think the Filipino food, the culture it brings us all together because every time we meet for something, there's always food. This is the most exciting part. And there's always friendly environment, respect. And yeah, this is all I actually really enjoyed. And this is what I miss actually right now. I miss that. But I'm really glad. I wanted to say this earlier, that I'm really glad that, despite the unexpected outbreak of COVID-19 that we all saw and that we all are suffering from our own end, everything is affected right now, right? But still, we have been able to continue our learning journey. And that I find is, it's a blessing that we did not have to stop our learning journey. The mindset that I had come with to dedicate the year to, for the course and to be able to meet and learn, it's still ongoing. and I do not feel any less when I'm taking it online. It keeps me equally busy. It gives me the same amount of, I'm equally interested in the topics that we talk, or in the courses that we are taking. So I really find this. I would say I am treasuring this experience despite the I would say the unfortunate situation that all of us are going through. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Anuja. Let's hear from you, Maham.
Very similar to what Anuja was saying, I think, and now I'm sort of getting nostalgic to how we were in the dorms, and then Anuja mentioned some of the things. I think one great thing about being an international student is how, because AIM is an international university, they're very accustomed to how to deal with international students. So even before you come to the campus, the recruitment and marketing team is very accommodating. They help you out. They talk to you in your time zone. And then I remember when I was about to arrive, I got an email saying, one of our students going to come and pick you up from the airport, which was completely unnecessary, something that I wasn't expecting, but it gave me a glimpse of how friendly and how accommodating the university is. And from day one, the mode of communication is in English, so you don't feel like you're an outsider. Even in our personal groups, when we're talking in our class, everybody makes sure to speak in English, so nobody feels left out. And in the dorms, it was like a small universe of our own. I think I remember the dorm we were staying in, we had people from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal. There's like a mini South Asia summit going on there. So it was very interesting. And in the classroom as well, China, Bhutan, Nepal, Pakistan, and other countries, it's great to learn from each and everyone brings, to learn more about their culture. And the great thing, again, what Anuja was saying, is at the end of the day, Filipinos are so warm and friendly that it feels like home. The moment I stepped into AIM, I felt like I was home, and that's been my journey. And the great thing is, like Anuja was saying, everything centers around food and music and a little bit of karaoke when you're trying to kick back and relax. So that's also been a great way when when you've had a packed day with studies, you can sit by the pool in the campus or just talk to your friends and classmates, which has been great. And that culture is sort of, like Anuja was saying, has translated online. People have stepped up with COVID-19 situation when we moved to remote learning. We were having our support groups. The program team was very facilitating, constantly asking if we're making sure our learning is not getting impacted. So overall, it's been a great journey as an international student. I think if anybody is actually considering this is they should definitely sign up. It's a once in a lifetime experience, and I'm really happy that I took this on.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for sharing. Now I'd like to go to one of the activities that you're doing in MDM, and that is seeking to understand and trying to serve the underserved. Now, you in your own countries, in your respective countries, you see and feel your own issues or problems. Now, coming to the Philippines, how did it impact you to see that there are similar or different development problems? And what are your thoughts on that? You come here. For us, we are a developing country, and I don't know, what are your thoughts about the similarities or differences about the development problems with the Philippines and probably in your countries? Yeah, Maham?
I think one core thing about development is that developmental issues usually remain the same, irrespective of wherever you are in the world. Inequity will always exist, whether you're in Bronx in US or you're in Manila or you're in Islamabad. We see similar issues, whether it's poverty, not having access to quality education or healthcare. So those are issues that are similar in all development countries, and Pakistan and Philippines are not any different. One thing that is different from both countries that I noticed is that Philippines is not a patriarchal society, which is very interesting for me because most countries, especially in Asia, are patriarchal. So they have this concept of how they look at women is very different from how women are looked at or how women's role is in the Philippines. So that was actually it's very fascinating. I'm trying to sort of learn as much as I can to make sure that I translate this back into Pakistan as well, that mindset and that way of thinking as well, when we think about women in the society. So, yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing. Anuja, you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, it's the same, Carlo. Even Nepal is mostly patriarchal, I would say, and it's so deep into our culture and our practices, which has gone on for many years. And but I felt it completely different when I came to Philippines, because when I entered a meeting room, the most surprising part was most of them were women. It always used to be a like different scenario for me here, right? But there it's something different. And which I really admired. And like Maham said, yes, each country has their own developmental problems and its own challenges of its own nature, right? But one thing that I really appreciated about Philippines and the people of Philippines in general is, I'm talking about the public here, their level of awareness about the political status, the condition of their country, about their rights, of whether it be about education, health, and so on. I felt like it was so high compared to my country here, the people here in Nepal. That's at least what I felt. I'm not sure if if I'm completely right here, but that I really felt when I actually went and visited a community and worked with them for a week. Um, there is a sense of attention. There is interest in the public, and public is always looking up to the government at whether it be the local government units or at the national level. They're always looking up. So I think that creates a positive a positive energy. It's a push force towards the government in doing a better job, I would say. And what I feel is, I think maybe we here are not so much aware of our political scenario. And I can understand why, because we've gone through so many unstable governments in the past 10 to 20 years. Like it would be almost impossible to keep up with the changes of the policies, of the leadership and everything. Like it would change every 6 months, if not in like 2 or 3 months, right? So it was not practical. But I really appreciated that part of Philippines. And I would also say that as an international student, one of I think the precious thing is when you go and learn in another country, then I started appreciating a few things about my country too, which I was not able to when I was here. So when I went there, mind would automatically compare, like, okay, Philippines has this versus Nepal has this. So I would always compare in my mind. And I realized, I felt that I am more respectful of the things that my government is able to do now. And I am also aware of what other things Philippines is doing better and what we can learn from that. So this has been valuable to me as well. Yeah.
All right, thank you. While listening to your stories, I was reminded about the time when I was applying for MDM. So I got in, I passed the exam, and it was time for my interview. Okay, so it was Prof. Ken who interviewed me. So yeah, we had a couple of questions. I was able to answer some, was not able to answer the others. He was talking about current events. He even told me that I'm a good candidate for the program with my skill set of community development, background in community development and communications and marketing. But I was not able to answer anything about current events, about some of the social issues. That's why I got rejected on my first interview. I'm not sure if you know that. But so he told me that being a development manager requires us to always be up to speed, always be knowledgeable about what is happening in our current events, because we respond to these issues, we respond to these changes, and that is one of the impacts that we need to give in our communities. But I was happy because I was given a second chance. He told me that I will have another set of interview in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So that's what I did. And the next 2 or 3 weeks, I brush up on the current events, read the newspaper every day, watch TV, and then get as much information that I can. And then the second interview arrived. The day of the second interview arrived. And you know what questions Prof. Ken asked me? Nothing about current events. He just, yeah, he just asked me one thing. He asked me, and I will never forget this. He asked me, Carlo, how can you contribute to nation building? So until now, I have that feeling that that is the reason why I signed up for MDM. It's because it's not about me, like you mentioned earlier, Maham and Anuja. It's not about us, but the people that we want to serve, especially the underserved. Now, that's a personal story of mine. Maybe I'll ask you. Let's start with Maham. What impact do you want to leave to your community or to the sector that you want to serve?
So for me, one thing that I want to leave behind is knowing that I've worked towards ending some sort of inequity, or I've raised my voice against injustice, social injustice primarily. And that requires a lot of work. So that's not something one person can do. And one thing that systems thinking has taught us is that we have to think about what the bigger system is like. How do you then change that? And that requires mobilizing people, that requires working with the government and different other stakeholders. It's not just one person's job. So for me right now, what I want to do beyond MDM is bring all these learnings in. One thing that Anuja mentioned was like we have a zoomed out perspective now, so we know how things work in a bigger system. Now we have to go back and then start fixing it already and start mobilizing those teams and people who believe in our cause. And if they don't, let's start having a conversation with those people already. Why they think differently, and maybe we can change their mind, they can change ours. We find a middle ground and look for the solution, because at the end of the day, what you mentioned is great, Carlo. Nation building is all that it's about. We're working towards making our countries better, making lives better for the people who live in our countries, and especially the ones who are from the marginalized communities. And it has to start from us. It has to start somewhere. And this program is equipping us to do that after the MDM program is over as well.
Yeah. Before we get to you, Anuja, I just wanted to add, like, all throughout our MDM journey, it feels like you get more thirsty. You have that more hunger to learn more, so you can serve more. So I think that's one of the great takeaways that I have in our MDM classes, is that every time you learn something new, you always have a specific scenario in mind where you think, how can I apply this? When can I apply this? Because I think it gives you the confidence that you know that you can be part of the solution to a problem. Yeah. Okay. Anuja?
I so much agree, Carlo. We get hungrier every time there are new things that we learn because we get so attached, right? And something similar happened to me during MDM. For instance, Maham's MRR is something that I like. I already have a hunger for. Like, wow, why can I not do this in my context? Like that concept of a central or like a central volunteering platform. I was like, yes, that's also something that we as well need. But we all have our limitations of what we can do in the time that we have and all. What I would really want to say is I personally am not a very ambitious person, and I would not set up very high ambitions which I cannot achieve. I would say of saying, okay, I will make everything, like I will sort out all the health and education problem. No, I cannot do that. And I alone cannot do that. I know of it, and I know it more now through the learnings of MDM. Again, but what I can say is, what I can do and what you can do, Carlo, or what Maham can do is from our side. We can give our best in bringing about that change in starting with our society, and in any small way or in any way we can, at any scale we can, and then we later on look at scaling it up. And this also reminds me of the concept we learned, right, in MDM, leaders without authority. I would not mind to be that leader without authority, to bring about that change, as long as I'm able to work towards that mission and bring some changes in the ways I can. Yeah. Hi, Prof. Arnil.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Hello.
Hi, Prof. Arnil. It's really nice that you can join us. How are you, Prof. Arnil?
Good. Thanks for the invite, Carlo, Anuja, and Ma'am. Thanks for joining us. Anybody else who's here?
Our viewers, lots of viewers that are viewing in our FB Live. So yeah, Prof, we were just talking about, we got a bit personal already. We talked about the impact that we wanted to change, the impact that we wanted to bring to our communities, to our countries, and how MDM has helped us, and we feel that we were empowered because of the learnings that we were having in MDM. So Prof. Arnil, as the program director of MDM, what can we learn more on how can we scale up our learning and our understanding about impact leadership through the course? through the program.
Yeah, thanks, Carlo. And since you mentioned that, yeah, the conversation has turned a little more to the personal, and I guess I'll answer that question as well on a more personal level, in the sense that it's been a little more than a year now since I took this opportunity to be academic program director of MDM, and what I can certainly and honestly say that in as much as we'd like this program to be transformative for you, it has also been very transformative for me. In the sense that I guess there are three things that come to mind why it has been transformative. One is, I've spent 8 years out of the country, out of the Philippines, and I've been with other universities, and but no other university and faculty has been as transformative as this one, and in particular because of I've seen how much time they've taken to really curate the classroom. And now that we've gone virtual, we've gone online, how they continue to be so, shall we say, more than strictness. It's the love for teaching, how that has been preserved, and I think that is something that is transformative for me in terms of the level of commitment that the faculty has, and it's infectious, right? And I didn't realize that academics such as myself can be that level of dedication is amazing and world class, really. And for that reason, I felt so confident that going virtual wouldn't be a really big problem in terms of keeping the effective classroom experience. So that's one. Another is the fact that they see MDM, and again, this has transformed me because they see MDM as pioneering. It's pioneering for them because they set this up in the 1990s, so it's 3 decades old now, and it has invented and reinvented itself over time. And the recent iteration is something that you're beginning to experience your cohort, but it's even going to be more exciting. Let me say that it's not to say that yours is less exciting, but I guess we all have to keep on improving, right? But looking at your cohort, it's even more exciting, 2021. And I don't say that at all trying to be a marketing guy, because I do feel very excited, in a sincere way, personal way, excited about 2021. What's exciting about it is we're bringing in a curriculum that is really designed for impact leadership. And I think that's something that you've been discussing for almost an hour now. But let me just say that how the course has been designed moving forward, already you see it, but even to a greater extent moving forward, how the leadership skills and the learning journey all converge into leading into the development of what we call impact leaders. So that's one, and that to see that entire process, to go through that entire process within AIM, and that process, I can certainly tell you, hasn't been easy, and rightly so, right? Because this is an program that won, for instance, the some time back, and that's a very prestigious award. And because of that, you know, AIM community sees this as a really a pioneering and innovative program, and we have to keep it that way. So it wasn't a simple pass of saying we want to do this new thing and we're just going to do it that way, and no one cares, nobody asks a question, nobody challenges you. So it has gone through a lot of deep thinking into this, and so we're ready to go 2021 and welcome the new cohort with you guys there, welcoming them. So that's exciting. And then lastly is it's been transformative for me because of how I've seen this cohort of students. When we're talking about impact leaders, and an important aspect of impact leadership, I'm sure you know, I don't know if you discussed this, is bridging leadership, isn't it? And you know, bridging leadership brings in the aspect of co-creation. And your experience, I hopefully, well, you can disagree with what I'm about to say, but for me, I've seen that in action with your cohort, working with us so closely and giving us candid feedback, and us giving you straightforward and clear replies, and then we work things out. And so the curriculum in some ways is also a product that you've put together, right? I hope you feel that way. So that's been a transformative experience for me as well. Seeing you guys, you know, go from being shy as a cohort, and then the pandemic happened, everybody turned very sort of uneasy, panicky about the situation, and understandably everybody complains after that, right? So, and rightly so, you guys made those complaints known, but then that led to another level of maturity, right? Which was a problem-solving approach to complex problems, you know, a problem-solving approach to the situation that you're in, as opposed to just simply complaining. So, you know, seeing you guys do that and seeing you guys do it so well, honestly, has been very transformative for me. Yeah, sorry, I don't remember what your question was, but that's that's what I wanted to share on a personal level.
Thank you, Prof. Arnil. And I think the word transformative really stuck to us. And I would personally say that even in MDM, it has been really helpful because, you know, the pandemic really forced us to be creative, to be resourceful. It's not that we don't have any other options, but really it made our cohort, our communities, even our leaders to think outside the box, to become effective leaders, effective communicators, and effective collaborators. So I think that is an important aspect in having impact leadership. And we were discussing earlier about our experiences in MDM, and then I wanted to share, like last night I was contemplating while I was preparing for our session this afternoon. And with my experience in MDM, I'm thinking of the jumping on a trampoline. You start with small steps, small jumps. Sometimes if you're afraid of heights, you know, you're not sure what's going to happen next. You start with small jumps. You have very limited view, but eventually, once you get hold of it, you get used to it, you get to bounce up, you get to bounce higher, you get a broader view, you get a wider perspective of things. So I think for me, that's my MDM journey, aside from what I shared earlier. So it really has a great impact on me. And like what Maham and Anuja said earlier, we are all excited to put into action whatever we are learning and whatever we are still going to learn in MDM. So yeah, thank you for that, Prof. Arnil. Before we end our very insightful discussion, maybe Maham and Anuja, you'd like to say some more things about just to end our discussion this afternoon? Anuja?
Yes, Carla, I think we've said much, but I would just like to say a line as a student of MDM. What I'd like to tell our audience is, at AIM and in MDM classes, we are allowed to be ourselves. We are allowed to ask questions. We are allowed to discuss. We are allowed to argue as well, like Prof. Arnil signaled. So that's a safe environment that we get inside the classroom, and that's what I think really helps us in learning, really deeply learning the content, or the real absolute idea within. And I think this is very much treasured by myself as a student, and I hope this like me sharing this information will also be helpful to our audiences. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Maham?
Much like what Anuja said, I think this MDM journey has been wonderful because, and if for anybody who's thinking of joining it, this is 1 year that you get to have for yourself. We've been working, a lot of us have been working for many years. You finally get a year in your 30s or 40s, whatever your age is, where there's an institute that's focusing on your growth, training you, giving you all the resources that you need, so you become a better leader for your community and the country that you serve. Who gets to have that opportunity? That's why I always say it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, because you get to learn from these people, and then you get to learn actual transferable skills, which has been great. So if you're actually thinking of creating impact in your communities and you're thinking of you need to grow, this program will definitely push you to grow. So yeah.
All right. It's been an honor to have this discussion with two great women leaders who I'm very sure will leave great impact not only in your respective communities but to the world. I am sure of that. And thank you also, Prof. Arnil, for joining us, and to all our viewers in the Philippines and abroad. We see a lot of viewers abroad as well. We thank you for joining us this afternoon. And if you want to know more about the MDM or the Masters in Development Management, just go to the website and our Facebook page. So again, thank you, and have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy. So this is Carlo, your moderator for this afternoon. Thank you again, and we'll see you at the next episode of MDM Live. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Maham, Anuja. Thank you, Prof. Arnil.
We need to operationalize ideas. We have a lot of ideas to solve problems of the world.
How can we build and scale the new business models, products and services, marketplaces, partnerships, and alliances that will strengthen our resilience in the areas of food security, public health and wellness, education, and social cohesion and culture?